So the people you see in front of you here are Gabriel and Nina of the channel Rational Typology. I think they're sort of newer to the YouTube space, but I can tell they're very educated on it. They have this new model they're working on. So clearly before they came to YouTube, they did a lot of work on understanding Mbti. So they actually interviewed me on their channel a couple weeks back, just like inside the mind of an INTJ. And their format is interesting because it's 16 questions for the 16 types, the same questions every time, but it's very revealing of how different the types are and how, like, from the horse's mouth, what they would actually say. But interestingly enough, they don't say anything about themselves. Like, you barely get to know them. So I'm like, someone's got to interview this couple and just ask them some questions. So thank you all for being here.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for inviting us.
Thanks for having us.
Yes. Nina's the most adorable INFJ on YouTube, and Gabriel's the most stoic INTJ that you see. So I just wanted to throw my 2 cents about my impressions. So my first question is, why now? There's so much MBTI content that's gaining popularity. So for you two, what's your new angle? What's the new model? What insight are you bringing that's not available now?
It's probably the best model from an objective standpoint.
But it's just non-biased.
Well, it doesn't matter if it is biased, because the truth is the truth, regardless of if you think it is or not.
Okay, how are you going to back that up, though?
Because it's measuring like predictable, measurable outcomes, and if you understand the definitions, you can get at the same time, regardless of who you are.
So once you understand the definitions we've come up with, it is very easy to be able to type someone. And it's very, very predictable in that way. And we feel very straightforward. And we know there isn't enough information out yet. So that is a weakness that we have. But once we put up the website and once we put out more information, I think people will be able to understand the differences between our model and other models and why it's superior as well.
It's also got good exponential value. That is to say, if you understand the model, if you act within those parameters, you can make a lot of progress in areas you couldn't before. Maybe, like, if you know how you work, then you can engineer your life to suit what you're good at, and maybe try to avoid things you're bad at.
What compelled you both to start putting your stuff on YouTube?
Because it was very useful for us
to be able to understand ourselves.
Well, it was very useful for me, being in a relationship with you, and like not 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 that it was bad beforehand. Like, I'm not saying that, but it really makes communication efficient.
Well, yeah,
it's like knowing where each other stand on things is very
all right.
It's very useful.
So what you're saying is, like, you want to bring that out there in a way that applies to people and that they can get use out of that.
Well, yeah, because like if you understand you're talking to a high NE user, then the way you're going to be expressing yourself should be different, because they're going to understand it differently than a high NI user.
Yeah,
because with a high NI user, you'd try to define the specific elements that they can work from, and they'll play it out themselves, and they'll generalize that based on the specific elements. If it's a high NE user, that's not going to work in the same way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us have experienced that kind of profound insight of going, well, I'm not alone. I'm actually this certain type, and being able to understand that and being able to communicate that to other people in a more applicable way where they can recognize that. I think that's huge. It's like life-changing for a lot of us.
Yes. Yeah. That's how I said the same thing as you two, that it changed my life when I started to understand being an INTJ, and then I just had to be like, I'm not like an evangelical preacher about it. Like, I don't try to convert people, but anyone that's willing to listen, I will tell you, something will change in your life. If you take one nugget out of the coaching, you'll never forget it. So it does change your life. As much as people want to resist being labeled, it does.
Yeah. And even if people aren't into it, and you can predict what they do or how they operate, and then they go, oh yeah, I do that. I think that's hugely valuable. So
now, tell me about the dynamic between you two, INTJ, INFJ. I assume that there's like positives to both leading with NI. You might use them differently and things like that. But where is it great, and then where is it like real tough sometimes?
It feels like we're speaking the same language. We're expressing it differently, but we're coming from the same homeland in some way.
Um, we're both good with patterns, and we can generally finish each other's sentences.
Yeah.
That's pretty predictable.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like inside jokes, like kind of that, but it's so common that it's almost just its own way of communication.
Yeah.
Because it's like you get the first bit of the pattern, you play it out, and like we both do that with each other all the time, so it becomes like its own kind of sub language.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in a relationship sense, it's both very calm and stable, and that is really nice, because there are other types that just they don't want to do that. But in a relationship sense, for me, that's really nice.
So I don't know if this fits into your model, but like obviously, Nina, you'd be FE as you're judging, and Gabriel, you'd be TE. But does that affect the way that you make decisions at all, or do you not subscribe to that necessarily?
No, it definitely affects things. Yeah.
Okay. Like, tell me about that, because I would be, my biggest thing is like, oh, here's going to be the biggest dichotomy between you two. So what have you noticed?
Yeah, that we interact with people very differently.
Okay.
Like, you typically are focused on kind of creating some
Building rapport.
some kind of like some like mutual ground that which then you can act from in some kind of collaboration.
Yeah.
And with me, it's much more like a mechanistic comprehension of human behavior.
Yeah, and I find that sometimes I translate Gabriel to other people so they can relate, because he will mention something and people will have no reference point for it, and then I'll try to translate it. But then you will be more on accuracy and refine it into accuracy. So
Where would you both say that personality type or these personality models are limited? What can't they tell us?
The person's values.
or the specific patterns that they've made through their own life experiences, because the types, even if we have subtypes in our system, even if they're the same subtype, they could be vastly different still because of the way they have built themselves, or the patterns they've made, the way they have responded to things.
Do you think well, I guess this is just a random question, but do you think we're going to be okay as a like Western civilization if we just can't define things to 100% accuracy? Like if we're just like, there's some things that are, Carl Jung was very okay with like things not being fully fleshed out, but it seems like we're trying to get things like so empirical data that it's just like, this is valid. Are we going to be okay, society, to not have all the answers with personality type and all that?
I think that with a good model, you can engage with systems in a way that you can get predictable results that are in your best interests. And so you don't have to have that, but the more you do, the better it is, providing it's a good model. If it's a bad model, then it's going to lead to further issues.
I see you're thinking something. You're just, what is it?
Well, I think that accuracy should be the goal, because and trying to define accuracy and having mechanisms to measure accuracy more and more and more, and because we can never get to what's truly there, but we can maybe get closer and closer to what is. So I think that should be the goal, and that's something that could actually unite people too.
Yeah. They're starting to say there isn't value in vague formations of knowledge. That definitely is value in that.
When you say vague, are you talking about something like just the dichotomy, just like the 4 letters being that vague, or something like
yeah? I mean, that's an example. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, because it's like if you don't understand it in a really detailed way, but you understand it kind of, it's like, well, then it's kind of useful. And that's good. And there's also the thing of like you can use vague formations of knowledge as a muse, and then from that you can build genuinely good ideas.
That's brilliantly
So
said. Yeah, because
sure.
nobody came into type that I know of through like understanding the cognitive functions right away. I think I was obsessed with just the four letters for a long time, and I think we all kind of filtered or funneled into type the same way. But then obviously what's been done with it has been different. But you can do enough with just the four letters to be like, I conceptually understand this person, and then maybe the temperaments you zoom a little bit in. So you're
Yeah.
right. It's
Yeah.
you can do enough with like just ENTJ. You conceptually understand them.
Yeah. It would be nice if there was a broader understanding of it, though, in society.
If you could give like a state of the union on the MBTI community, where would you say we're at? What's going on? I mean, and I'm talking like as broad as what's on Twitter, YouTube. I reside on LinkedIn a lot. Like, what's the state of the union there? Instagram, Reddit, all the different.
Very scattered.
Yeah.
People make their own thing out of it, but I think a lot of people get a lot of positive things out of it as well. There's always good and bad. There's people mistyping themselves because they don't understand it properly, and you're always going to have that. And then there are people who go, wow, I feel like I can finally understand myself. And I think that's worth it. And
So I think there's like Twitter MBTI is very different than Instagram MBTI, which is very different than Reddit, which I've got back into Reddit. I'm kind of browsing around the INTJ section. It's interesting. But then like the YouTube is very vast. So you're just on YouTube, right? That's where you've decided to make your home. Are you going to branch out anywhere else? Or is it like, nah, I don't need to be on Twitter?
We're going to write books. I don't think we're going to be on Twitter.
Okay.
I've got a personal Instagram that I just started, but it's more like a personal thing. So I've seen some of the memes that are going on there. But they seem similar to like Facebook. It's not very unified.
Like there's a lot of division, which is probably good because they think different things.
Yeah.
Well, it's not good or bad. It's just how people act. It's like it's absence of a moral criteria. There's some problems in the sense that people pride type.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's dumb. Don't pride type. But if
you mean like their own type is superior?
Yeah.
So I would cover things like like what you said, like thinking your type is superior, whatever that type is, and then I would also cover things like wanting to be a certain type because you think that is the good type. I think that's silly.
Yeah, and then people try to fit into that mold, and they're not going to be happy. Because you can be healthy in any type if you figure out how to do that.
It's like you can be a healthy version of whatever your type is, but you can't be a healthy version of a different type because you're not that type.
Right.
I try to find ridiculous people on YouTube.
Okay, that's great. What are the search terms you're using for that?
INTJ. And then you just look at all the people thinking that.
I am definitely an INTJ. Response to the haters, INTJ.
That's a really good search term, yeah.
But it's also because my YouTube is so demented because I only subscribe to terrible people.
So to make the algorithm only show you terrible stuff.
Yeah, like just the worst I can find, and that's how I like calibrate if I'm being sensible or not.
Yeah, he likes to look at people that are extremely messed up to see the patterns that they do, the type they are, and to calibrate and see what patterns you need to do to mess up. And then as a consequence, how can you be healthy?
It's a real extreme way to go about it, but I feel like it's an accurate way to do it. So you wouldn't want to look at someone who's like extremely well developed because there's no information there.
Oh, well, that's kind of like, yeah, you're good at stuff.
I think there's still value in it, but it's like, wow, you do this well and you do this well, and I think there's value.
So, it's like being logical, right? It's like you're logical if you're not doing fallacies. So you're healthy if you're not making terrible mistakes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but then like if you find the occasional like I guess genius like Elon Musk, and you're like, wow, he's really used those functions to the height of their ability. Good job.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to calibrate what he's doing, but I also just don't know how to, because I can't get a lot of interviews with him. It's like I can read his book and stuff, and it's like I can see that he's using the functions well, but and what's motivating him is just like a congruent motivation. So it's almost like the absence of problems leads to excellence.
But is there anything that you want to let my audience know? Just for my audience, I will be posting all the relevant links to find their channel and then the interview that I did. But I just want to know what else is on your mind right now.
We're busy writing a book, making the website, getting more information out. I think that's all we can do in order to explain our system, so that I think it'll be really useful to people once there is more information out there. At the moment, there isn't enough, I think, but hopefully when it's out there, people will check it out.
Like I was once focusing on like a model, and I was focusing on it to an extent that I didn't know that I was like my appendix had burst.
Yeah, 3 days earlier or something like that, and then had to be transported to hospital because he almost died.
Yeah, so it's like this kind of obsessive mentality has its risks.
Oh yeah, my God. Wow. Okay, this is a random question, and when is the last time you both cried?
Probably today.
When you got that email, you're like, oh my God.
No, it's just I realized something I did wrong, because I'm like we're both very focused on understanding ourselves and being congruent, probably more so than a lot of people, because we really want to focus on that. So it's not just like on the sideline. We both want to focus on understanding ourselves. So if I realize that I'm doing something wrong and the effect it has, then it's really upsetting, because then I go, well, I've done this all of my life, and it has had all this impact, and that's upsetting. I don't want that, and then I want to change that.
To answer your question, I think it was
Yeah, when did you cry?
About a month before we got together.
We've been together for 4.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's because a situation was so upsetting to me, and I wasn't even involved in it. It was just like a person I knew, and it was just so upsetting to me that it's like yeah, it was just this person I knew, and they had such like a clever mind, but their life had been so terrible. They'd been through like the foster system, and it just was like overwhelming, the amount of things that they had to deal with, and it was just very upsetting for me.
Yeah, that's yeah, it's amazing. Like I hate to think that people think INTJs have no emotion. I was like, no, super emotional. I don't, not like unhinged, but I think there's a lot of access there. I don't know.
Yeah, frequency doesn't mean potency. Actually,
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so with our system, yeah, our emotions would update slower than Nina's. But that would be the same potency.
Yeah, it's the same like strength of emotion still.
Yeah.
Well, I am really looking forward to whatever book comes out or whatever like information starts to come out. I know that early on in your channel you sort of explained it, like what this model was about, but I know that'll be more fully fleshed out and then in a book format, maybe a long video format. But I'm definitely, when I see good people in the MBTI community, especially those that reach out to me, I definitely want to reciprocate and have them on the show, because you guys don't say anything on your channel about who you are. Like sometimes you'll reflect, but
we tried not to.
Okay.
Yeah, we try not to when we're interviewing people, just so you know their type is expressed.
I think that channel needs to be about what the type thinks, not that we agree with it or disagree. It's not about that, because otherwise
you're not going to challenge them on them.
It would be me having an argument with a person.
No, that would probably be. That could be. I mean, that could play into the overall state of the community, where it's just like we should have an argument about. You should interview all the mistyped people. All the people you think are mistyped. Like, here's why you're not that.
Well, we do have.
We were thinking about that.
We do have Warmest Robots channel for that.
Yeah, have you seen that channel? It's called The Warmest Robot. They basically criticize the MBTI community.
We kind of pick on people we think are stupid.
In harsh ways. Yeah. Harsh. I cannot be part of it, but harsh. A lot of people don't like it because they insult people. So.
Oh, you guys have been great. I really appreciate what you do, and just like how you have real value in the community, and looking forward to seeing your channel grow. It seems like it is growing. I see the view counts going up, and as you get just more, as you get all the types, and then just whatever you do to expand, I'll be there to help you guys. So appreciate you getting up very early your time to do this interview with me, and I will make sure that my audience, everyone is obligated to subscribe.
Thank you. That's really sweet.
Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate what you do as well.
Okay. Thank you.
I tried to live without you. Just can't go.